I don't know if I'm that unknown, people. Ask Governor Pawlenty. Guess I'm still not one of his favorites, but that's fine. Okay, at any rate, I'm not going to show anything. It really isn't an update. I guess I'm going to give a speech on cameras in the courtroom. So, and I didn't realize it was of that much interest, but I've been being called by people who want copies even before I give it. And I said, I can't skip, be strictly keep to a script. I never have in my life. But at any rate, within the last year, WCCO television reporter Jason DeRusha dealt with the good question, why don't we have cameras in the courts? That's what I want to talk about today. The question is one that's been asked by members of the media in Minnesota for years. It's also becoming increasingly asked by the public as they see more and more coverage of high-profile criminal cases in other states, including venues as close to Minnesota as Wisconsin, Iowa, and North Dakota. The answer is a complicated one, based on long years of practice and the unique legal culture in Minnesota. The easy answer is our court rules don't allow easy access to the courts for cameras. Our courts have always been open to reporters and even artists who can do drawings in controversial cases. We've even got a history of case law that's ruled against judges and told them you can't close the courtroom even for some significant matters. For years, there have been rules dealing with cameras in the courts that have been promulgated by our Supreme Court. The easy answer is that the rules have made it very awkward and difficult for cameras to get into the courtrooms in Minnesota. We're presently in the middle of a pilot project that was allowed by the Supreme Court after receiving a report from a committee that was established to look into this issue. The pilot program expires, I believe, on October 1st. John Costas thinks I might be wrong, but I think it's October 1st, 2013. When that expires, this issue will again become a controversial one for the Supreme Court and the trial courts. It was hoped by the media and many judges that the pilot project would result in more practice with having cameras in the court. That hasn't happened. Cameras had been allowed in more civil proceedings, but it's still almost impossible to get them into criminal proceedings under the present rules, including the pilot project rules. The pilot project really loosened up civil, but it still requires consent of the parties in criminal matters. So the question again, why aren't there cameras in the courts in Minnesota? I'm now going to go over a number of reasons why I think that in my experience, we haven't grown as much as I wish we had in allowing cameras in the courts. And my experience is 26 plus years as a trial court judge and a prosecuting attorney before that. As much as I wish, I just said that. There, I said it. I'm for cameras in the courtroom. This is still a controversial issue among the trial court judges in our state, and there'll be some that won't like the fact that I said that. Most are open to at least the discussion. I favor some limitations, which I'll talk about later, but I think the justice system would be better served by loosening up our rules regarding cameras in the courtrooms than by keeping them as limited as they are at present. I've had some personal experience with cameras in the courtroom, and it has all been positive. My most recent experience has been in the government shutdown, and I think everybody followed that. We had both still cameras and television cameras in the courtroom. It was great. We forget, I think a judge forgets about it because, especially with that case, the issues were so complex, so significant that I looked, I saw it was stationary, and I forgot about it. I think the lawyers did. I didn't find any inappropriate behavior on the part of the lawyers, any playing to the cameras, any unnecessary grandstanding. And I believe that it helped the public understand what went on. I also believe that it helped the public have more confidence not only in the justice system, but also in our whole system of government. Although I think they became frustrated with the other two branches. I think it may also have helped put some pressure on the other two branches to resolve what turned out to be the longest state government shutdown in the history of the United States. I had experience with the canvassing board. It wasn't a courtroom experience. I was on it because I was a judge, but I wasn't a judge on it. But that, to me, was really personally informative on the importance of cameras at public matters for public confidence, and so the public can understand what we're going through. I had experience with PhoneGate. This is quite a while ago. It involved House of Representatives phone records. I let the cameras in to hear those arguments. I had experience with the first punitive damages motion involving priest sexual abuse cases. I'm not sure, that was in the 80s, the early 80s, I think. And I let them in on the arguments about that case. It was Father Adamson, and it was controversial when I did it, but I thought it worked out fine. So, the question repeated again, why aren't there cameras allowed in the courtrooms? I'm going to give you a number of reasons, and I think it's reflective of what I said earlier. It's the unique culture, the experience of our legal system in our state. Judges are afraid, and I'm not saying that to be critical of judges. Some judges aren't comfortable with public speaking. Some worry that the media, and I worry about this too, will take a statement that they make out of context and make them look bad. Sometimes we worry that it will limit the give and take that is appropriate in some cases to bring about a just result. It will make it more difficult for juries. There's a belief that it will. Victims and other witnesses will be less willing to testify in criminal cases. County attorneys don't want it. They've opposed it again and again. Witnesses will not want to be seen as snitches. This is especially concerning in gang cases. It will make jury duty more difficult. They'll be nervous about whether their faces will be shown. It'll bring more publicity to a case, and so people who know they're involved in it, they're afraid they might talk to them, even if their faces aren't shown. Judges and attorneys will play to the camera. It will take more time. Other judges and or lawyers will think that you are a hot dog. I didn't know what the proper term was. Hot dog, grandstanding it, media hound, I'm not sure. But they will think you are. And we care about what other judges think of us, to be honest. Maybe we shouldn't, but we do. We have, a good collegial bench in Minnesota, and you don't want to be the one oddball. The media is so used to being told no that they've given up asking. That's the reason that the media should think about. All of the things discussed above are reasons why we don't have cameras in the courtroom in Minnesota at present. None of them, in this speaker's opinion, are so impossible to deal with that Minnesota courts should not work with responsible media representatives to make our courtrooms more accessible to cameras, not only in civil matters, but also in criminal matters. To continue with the present practices that basically discourage cameras in the courtroom would be to ignore the fact that all across the United States, having cameras in the courtroom has been successful. Sure, you might be able to think of one example. I can think of an example where a judge did, quote, hot dog it in Florida. But that's a rarity. It's not the practice. It's not the normal. It ignores the fact that except for a few, judges have not played to the cameras. In my experience, as I said before, a judge quickly forgets the camera is even there. We become, as we should be, so involved in the dynamics of the case, in the importance of being fair, and the necessity to make rulings that we don't notice the cameras. It ignores the fact that the media has been respectful and thoughtful around the country in their decisions regarding identifying vulnerable victims and other witnesses. It ignores the fact that the media has not shown the faces of jurors. It is time to make it easier for the public to follow our courts. We have hardworking judges and lawyers who care about justice in Minnesota, and they will protect litigants from unfair exposure. They will protect family law cases from having cameras where you're talking about child custody. They will protect child witnesses. They will protect jurors. They will protect, as we have a responsibility to do now, witnesses from being harassed, even by the lawyer's questioning, unfairly harassed. We will protect. I repeat, it is time. That's it.